Alright guys, so in this video I'm going to be going over the backstory of all of the 4 airplanes involved in the September 11 attacks, just kind of the backstory of them, along with some photos here as we go throughout. The first one, I'm just going to give an overall profile so you can see American Airlines flight number 11. The first flight was in April of 1987, so it lasted around 14 and a half years. The speed on impact was around 450 miles per hour, but that is disputed. Some people think it's lower than that at around 423. This was the impact, the first impact on 9/11 into the North Tower, higher up, dead in the middle, floors 93 to 99. That was the impact zone, and it is a Boeing 767, so they're all commercial airliners. This plane departed from Logan International Airport, and it was en route to Los Angeles International Airport, and you can just see some different photos of it. We do not have any photos of this airplane on the morning of September 11th, outside of right before it crashed. The few videos that we do have, we have 3 main different videos. I'm sure a lot of people know the most famous one, and then there are 2 other kind of obscure angles. If you look it up, you could find them, but there is that one. The next one is United Airlines Flight 175. Its first flight was in January of 1983, so a little bit older aircraft. They got some more use out of it, lasting around 18 years, a little bit over 18 years. The speed on impact of this one into the South Tower was around 590 miles, although that is also disputed. Some people think it's lower than that, and its current status, obviously, it's destroyed. The location, New York City, the financial district within the World Trade Center complex, South Tower or 2 World Trade Center, hitting lower and in the corner of the building, which completely doomed the South Tower between floors 77 and 85. It is also a Boeing 767. And I believe, if I have this right, this is the one that changed paint colors. You know, airplanes, especially commercial airliners, even back in the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, they just looked like metal tubes, almost like toothpaste. It's interesting how it's changed from them, but they just looked so metal back then compared to what they are now in the design styles and things like that. But there are just some photos of that. We don't have any verified photos of this one either on the morning, like when it comes to the plane being at the gate. There are no photos of it, just kind of the final, obviously at this point with the South Tower being hit, it was on a lot of different broadcasts because they were broadcasting what they thought, some of them thought was a fire from the North Tower. Other people saw that it was a plane. They had live shots like crazy on the World Trade Center complex, the Twin Towers, and that's why it was so traumatic for so many people. The South Tower getting hit by this airplane a little bit lower, which really doomed the building because there was more mass from the upper levels exerted onto that lower area, and then it was also lopsided onto the one side as well. And then you have the third plane, American Airlines Flight 77. Its first flight was sometime in 1991. Don't know the exact date of it, but around 10 years is what it lasted considering the September 11 attacks. The speed on impact right around 530 miles per hour. Current status is destroyed, and the location was Arlington County, Virginia, aka the Pentagon. The impact zone was the western flank, and it is a Boeing model 757, so just a little bit skinnier. And you can tell the difference between a 767 and a 757 based on just the outer look of it. The 67s are a bit bigger, but this was the one that crashed into the Pentagon. It was also headed for Los Angeles International Airport. It took off from Washington, and this one doesn't get talked about a lot. There is an actual verified photo of this plane at the gate on September 11th, 2001. It is the only plane of the 4 to have a photo of it at the gate, and you can see it. It looks like a beautiful day there in and around the District of Columbia, and to be completely honest, you see that photo about an hour and a half later, this plane is completely destroyed. So it is kind of an eerie photo to look at, but it did hit the western side of the Pentagon. And then, of course, when it comes to video of this, they did release video, but it is horrible in terms of the resolution. You can't really see anything. It's always weird to me when we get into these arguments and people are like, no, it's not an airplane, or it is an airplane, and they just start arguing. You can't tell if it's an airplane or not. It's a fireball. That's all you can say. Now, obviously, I'm not saying it wasn't an airplane, but just the way it was captured, the idea that, oh, this is the only video we have, obviously they're completely lying. And then you ask, why would the government lie? Well, they're allowed to lie. They can just say, it's going to compromise national interest. It's a risk. We're not going to release all the video. And they actually went to different like gas station locations to take all the video from the people of the plane hitting the building. Of course, I do think it was the plane, but I'm just saying the video we have of it is very, very brutal in terms of this is the Pentagon. And I have gotten into arguments with people where it's like, oh, they're not going to have videos pointed at the one flank of it. Dude, they're going to have videos everywhere. They've probably got aerial videos of the entire thing. The idea that the Pentagon doesn't have 5 cameras in every location in 2001 seems ridiculous to me. But that's another story for another day. This plane ended up going down. And then the final plane, it is United Airlines Flight 93. This one only lasted 5 years. Its first flight was sometime in 1996. The speed, it's disputed as well, but right around 560 miles per hour. The location was Somerset County, Pennsylvania, in a field, and the impact zone was a field near a coal strip mine right in front of a small lake. This was also a Boeing 757, so a little bit smaller of an aircraft in terms of that. And I have seen some photos of it potentially floated out there. Apparently there's a photo. It's a really far away shot of this potential plane turning around over Cleveland, Ohio, because that's where this plane turned when it was going back after it had been hijacked. And there is a photo. It just looks like a really, I guess it could be this plane, but it's just from so far away. I don't know why they would photograph it. It's not like you think, oh, a plane's in the air, it's probably been hijacked, I better take a photo of it. That's pretty ridiculous, but there is the idea that maybe somebody did capture a photo of this, and then when it comes to its crash, the only really photo we have of it is that barn shot where you can see the smoke and some of the fire. That's really the only thing we have in terms of that because of where it went down. It was such a remote location in Pennsylvania, right within the farmlands, and right before a tree line is where it hit. You can kind of see it, and then a lot of the material from the plane ejected, and there was an 8-mile crash zone radius, along with a lot of the parts going into the Indian Lake, which was right kind of to the north of the crash site. And then you do have 3 other airplanes that I would say they were kind of indirectly involved. You had the 2 main ones that we thought could have been potentially hijacked. There were also several others, and there's a lot of stories floating around out there right now about potentially another plane that people thought was hijacked, but I do know there are 2. I did a video on both of them, or I think I did it in the same video, but either way, I'll just show those photos of those aircrafts. Not that it really matters too much, but just something kind of interesting. And then the other aircraft that actually was involved was a very small plane on an airline that I don't believe exists anymore. The airline, I think, might have been out of business in 2011, but that is the flight from Portland, Maine to Boston Logan that Muhammad Atta took along with one of the other hijackers. There's 2 different reasons he could have done this. It's kind of common theory that it's either because Atta wanted to try and be a little bit more discreet in terms of not arriving at the airport at the same time as the other hijackers that would raise suspicion. One group, a massive group of, these people arriving at the same time. That was one of the reasons. And then the other reason would have been possibly to be able to go through security at a smaller airport, thinking that maybe the security in Portland, Maine would have been more laxed as opposed to a bigger, airport, Boston International. Those are the 2 theories on why they went to Portland, Maine, and then took a flight from Portland, Maine to Boston Logan, and then went on the bigger aircraft. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.